My name is Monica Singer. I live in Cape Town, as you can see, it's the background, in beautiful South Africa. And I've been in this country for 39 years. So I feel that I'm very South African, but I'm also Uruguayan. I was born in Uruguay, and then I came to live in beautiful South Africa. So I'm a chartered accountant by training. So I'm not a technical person, so you're not going to get any technical information from me today, but you will get a real understanding in plain English. Why? This is the best thing that has happened to the world. Why? Because one of the things that I did 24 years ago is that I was asked to transform the financial markets in South Africa from pure paper-based to digital. And we dematerialized the shares, converted the financial markets into a pure electronic basis, clearing and settlement system, created the legal entity of it's called Central Securities Depository, called Straight, and I ran it for 20 years. And then in 2015, I read Satoshi's paper, and my life changed. Totally, I have to tell you, I started crying when I read the paper, and why the emotion of what I read was so dramatic was because for 20 years I had built a centralized database with intermediaries, and everything I was doing, I knew that wasn't good enough. I was stuck, the plumbing of the financial markets. I knew that even though we had done the best we could, was still a disaster. Because it was settlement 3 days later, all the costs. I can write a book as to the problems that we created, but we or no one in the world could see how to change it. And then Satoshi writes the paper and says, guys, you got it all wrong. You do not centralize, you absolutely decentralize, and you get everybody to see the ledger at the same time. And that was also an emotional journey, because my previous job was to be an auditor and a chartered accountant. And one thing that the auditors keep on facing in life is called the expectation gap, which is the difference between what the auditors can do and what the public expects us to do. So for example, I'm sure many of you heard about Wirecard in Europe, this financial institution, where the money disappeared. Whoops. And where were the auditors? So everybody blamed the auditors. Poor Ernst & Young, but the truth be told, that it was that the management of Wirecard was totally fraudulent. So if you've got fraudulent management, they have no chance as an auditor. So here comes once again Satoshi. I said, guys, listen, poor auditors, what are you doing to these people? What if we do a ledger that is recorded real time and everybody can check on whether or not this information is accurate? And let's put a mathematical formula so that none of the actors looking at the ledger that gets recorded real time, get to cheat. And that is the magic of blockchain. So without further delay, I think I can start my presentation, because that sets the scene as to why I am absolutely in love with this technology. And I've been working for ConsenSys, which is the biggest blockchain company in the world, now for the last 4 years. And if I could tell you what we are building is so magical that sometimes I think I live in another planet, because the consensus of 600 staff members around the world, we live in the planet that we truly are building what I'm going to talk to you about. We are believers. So the other little story I've got is whenever, I buy crypto, of course, and I hold, and I'm never panic. So every time the price drops, I get people panicking. Shall we sell? Shall we sell? And I am, you don't sell, you hold. Thanks God, some people listen. The ones that don't listen are crying today, but at least I'm happy that I warned them. Okay, so without further delay, let me share my screen and start the presentation. The other thing I would like to do, because I don't know, I hope that you had a chance at least to quickly look at the slides. I'm sure you notice there's a lot of information in the slides, So I capture all the information in the slides so that you can go and do homework. You need to go back and read the slides. So today I'm not covering the slides in detail. We're going to go quite quickly to make sure that we stick to the 2 hours. So the first hour is going to be really all the cryptocurrencies. I think it's important we go through them. And the second hour is the new money. CBDCs, stable coins, and why those also are going to change the world. So I will show you why I believe in them, and why I hope that after you do this course, you will believe in them too. Okay. So yeah, and then I set the alarm that in 45 minutes we're going to stop, and we're going to do for a Q&A for 15 minutes, and then 45 minutes of lectures, 15 minutes of Q&A. My experience is I get a lot of questions in this session, more than in any other session. Okay. Thank you. So let me start the presentation. So, okay, here we are. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes. And as always, I mean, I'm encouraging everyone to ask questions, even the ones that feel that this is completely new to them.
Yes.
Please share all your doubts or ideas. Thank you, Monica. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. But the questions, don't ask me in the middle, because everything comes together. I hope.
Yeah. When you are providing the 15 minutes Q&A, exactly.
Yes. Exactly. So as you can see, we're going to talk about history. We need to set the history, because I think the biggest challenge here is that people don't understand how money gets created. So we need to talk about the evolution of money, how Bitcoin and Ethereum came about. I will mention briefly the alternative coins, and then we'll do a deep dive on CBDCs and stable coins. And if we have time, we'll talk about how we can save some of the banks. Maybe. Maybe not. Okay, so very important. Money is a social and legal construct. It's all based on trust. You all think that, that the money that you have will be protected in one way or another. And you know what? I'm going to disillusion you in so many ways, because money, as we speak, is being debased. What does it mean to be debased? It means that if you are printing money, like they're doing that in the US, that money eventually is going to reduce in value. And so what we say in our world is that you shouldn't be trusting all these intermediaries, and that includes central banks. Apologies to the Central Bank of Romania that is in the class. I'm not very politically correct, I have to warn you. Okay, fine. Okay, so this is the slide that I want you to put your mind in the future. And the future is only around the corner. Okay, this is what's going to look like. In 2030, I can assure you that everybody's going to be able to transact with each other. You will not need a bank account. You will have your own wallet. You download your wallet. You will send money, any type of money, real time, to anybody in the world using the internet. You might choose third parties. I also predict the baby boomers. Let me explain. There's a massive generational gap. Anybody above 45 or 50 is not coping with this reality. So these people, which I am one of them, so I'm not being nasty, I'm being honest, okay? So the older people are not going to cope. So when they get the central bank digital currency in the wallet, they're going to go to a bank and say, could you please help me? Okay. Then the younger generation are going to say, well, I'm never going to talk to anybody. I'm never going to go to a bank. And actually, my grandson is going to say, Granny, where's the bank branch? And I'm going to say, you won't believe, baby, the bank branch is a museum. They don't exist anymore. But can you believe that we used to stand in a queue to ask a human being to help us? And my grandson is going to say, no, you're kidding me. So this is the world we're building. So the taxes will be paid real time. Why? Because once, I hope that in the lecture on blockchain, you could see how this technology will be used by governments to ensure that you record the transactions real time, which, because they are programmable, they will be able to collect the taxes in real time. And also, just a word of warning, CBDCs will be programmable, and I'll show you where, and they will definitely be used as a tool to collect taxes in real time. Also, we know from the evolution of technology that many countries are going to have to apply universal basic income. And that will be paid real time, no more checks, no having to stand in queues and get cash, no more people stealing the cash, because that money will be real time paid into the wallets. There will be a multitude of cryptocurrencies, many stable coins, and of course, many central bank digital currencies. All these currencies will be interchangeable. just by a touch of a button in your phone, you will be able to transfer all these currencies. The credit card companies do not exist any longer because who wants to pay an intermediary? The cross-border transactions will be real time. No more Western Union charging 10 to 50% charges for transfers. The fees are low. Why? Because in most of these instances, it's a decentralized finance protocol where there are no employees, no staff members, no in buildings, no costs, and therefore you will be interacting just with a program. And therefore many of these services will be free. Of course, the data would always be reconciled, no intermediaries. And finally, cash will still exist for those people that do not cope with technology. But, I have to tell you that when the internet was created in 94, 95, many of my colleagues said, I'll never use the internet. I'll never send an email because the internet, is being used for gambling and pornography. We're not using the internet. You tell me who can live today without the internet? No one. And the same is going to be with the Internet of Value. Okay? This, I'm sorry, is the reality of what's going to happen in the world, and you will see why. So, huge evolution. The main thing that I want to highlight with this, look at the dates. Everything takes quite a long time for changes to happen. The changes are very dramatic. But the one thing that I have to highlight is that this time the changes are truly exponential. The world of DeFi that I'm going to cover next week, you will see it's a massive game changer, and it only really started 2 years ago. And that is going to disrupt everything bigger than just cryptocurrencies. This, I don't know if you're aware, when you think that you're paying, when you have conversations with the banks, I always laugh because everybody says, what's wrong with the payment system? It works. We get real-time payments. Really? The answer is nonsense, because everything you see, you get real-time payments. Actually, the plumbing of the banking system relies on mainframes, relies on Swift messages, which is highly problematic in terms of cost, delays, multiple intermediaries. Look at here, I bought a bicycle. Look at what that simple transaction went through so many computers and intermediaries, and that adds to the cost. That's why I'm sure there's 1.7 billion people in the world without bank accounts. You know why? Because they cannot afford the bank charges. And why the bank charges so much? Because the banks have got buildings and people and mainframes and Swift messages and crazy expenses. And that is what is going to be totally disrupted. This is also a fascinating story. Swift is the messaging system that the banks use. I've been working with them for 24 years. I cannot tell you the cost of maintaining a Swift infrastructure for any of these banks. It's horrific. And they said it was the most secure network in the world. Well, we know it's not true. And now we have a solution. We can use the internet, and it's more secure than the Swift ecosystem, and cheaper and faster. And this is a horrific story when you talk about sending money from one country to another. Do you know that if I want to send money from South Africa to Uruguay, the money goes from South Africa bank to New York bank to a Uruguayan bank? Why? Because there's no relationship between the coin, rand, and the peso in Uruguay. So you have to convert rand to dollar, dollar to rand, to peso. And that means that the money takes a week to arrive. Everybody gets a commission. So I sometimes think maybe I should take a plane and go and take it to my family. The money will get there cheaper, faster than all this correspondent banking system. But luckily, this is the first use case that is going to completely be decimated in terms of the new technology. As you can see, money is evolving, it's completely transforming. And the other thing that I will be using terms, very important terms, in terms of money definition. Money has to meet three definitions. It has to be a medium of exchange. What does it mean? That if I've got this money, you will accept it. If I want to buy something from you, you will say, okay, that's a good money, I'll take it. If I want to give you little stones for you cutting my hair, you're going to look at me and say, is she mad? What is this? So we both have to agree that we're going to agree on that currency as a medium of exchange. then it has to be a unit of account, meaning accountants, we love accounting for this. So we need to agree how we're going to reflect the financial statements, on what measurement will financial statements reflect. And that's why the unit of account is very important. And the final one is store of value. It must keep the value. You will see today, for example, that Bitcoin has proven to be a fantastic store of value because the value carries on increasing, so it's better than gold. You will see everything I'm going to cover. But it's been complicated in terms of medium of exchange. Why? Especially as units of account, because the value fluctuates, and accountants don't cope with this fluctuation. So they need something more stable. And that's why later on, I'll explain to you how the explosion of stable coins are coming to the market to meet this requirement. And then there are many challenges that El Salvador, a Central American country, made Bitcoin legal tender, and you will see they're having lots of challenges because of the fluctuations, but they are coming with solutions, which is to use a stable coin in parallel with Bitcoin. So very important, these three things are very important for you to remember. A brief history, because there's not enough time, but in a nutshell, it all started, in 1944, the creation of, after the war, the creation of the World Bank and the IMF, and all the discussions as to how the new money would be created. And that's where the US at that time was very powerful. It says, don't worry, let's do everything with dollars, and the dollars will be backed by gold, the gold reserves. The gold reserves, long story, you must read a little bit about the gold reserves because it's quite interesting, the history of the evolution of the gold reserves. The reality is that the Americans got into trouble in 1971 because they were backing this crazy war, the Vietnam War, and they were running out of money. So the dollars that were backed by real gold, 1-to-1, they realized they needed to print more dollars to pay for the war. So then what did Nixon say? Guys, we are going to cut the peg, no more collateral. So that means we'll carry on printing dollars, but it will not be reflected against the gold. And therefore, now we have the situation of in God we trust, that's what the coin said, the note says, because in reality, there's no more pegging. And just remember when I give you the lecture on DeFi, which everything is based on collateral. And I want you to start comparing legacy to the new world. And you tell me which one is better. And you tell me if we should be applying the regulations of the legacy world to the new world we're building. Or we should be listening to the people that understand this and say, if this is already protecting the investors, why do we need so much regulation? So the whole thing imploded in 2008. As I'm sure you've studied the financial crisis, it was terrible. I can tell you exactly where I was on the 15th of September 2008, when they announced that Lehman Brothers was defaulting. It was the world really felt like it was worse than an atomic bomb, worse. And that's why I feel for the pain that whoever Satoshi Nakamoto is, which I think is a group of people, we don't know who he, she, or they are. I feel the pain because when I read the white paper, read it again. If you don't like maths, don't read the maths. Just read what this paper is saying. It's saying never again should the world have to face this financial crisis. And the way Satoshi explains is what the result of everything. It's like, Einstein said that when there's a problem that gets created, you need a different level of consciousness to fix it. Clearly, Satoshi was not an accountant. Clearly, he was not in banking. And that's why it was able to come up with such a brilliant miracle of an idea, which it really is, for me, something that deserves the Nobel Economic Prize. I wish we could find Satoshi. Okay, and then to improve on Bitcoin's idea, in 2014, at young Vitalik Buterin, 19-year-old, isn't it beautiful? 19-year-old, it's incredible. A kid comes up with a brilliant idea and says, listen, Bitcoin is good enough, but I'm going to invent something even better. I'm going to invent Ethereum. Why? Because in Ethereum, we're going to put smart contracts. which will absolutely change the world. And as you know, I hope someone in a previous lecture explained, but just in case if you don't know, in plain English, a smart contract is like a vending machine. You know vending machines that you went to buy a chocolate and it says, press B1, put 10 euros and I'll give you the chocolate. And you press B1 and put the money and you get the chocolate. Did you argue with the machine? No, you didn't. The machine said, if this happens, therefore that happens. That's a smart contract, people. It's nothing complicated, but it's code. No more lawyers, no more writing 100 million pages of contracts that you have to read, which are so boring to read. Oh my God. In future, it will be put in code. And that is the best way to ensure that the intentions of the parties are taking place. And then, funny enough, COVID happened. And then what happened? People don't want to use cash anymore. You know, in 2015, I gave a lecture to a big group of central bankers, and I predicted that cash will stop being used as we know it today because of Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. They all thought that I had been smoking some marijuana of the best quality. So people were upset. Nobody wanted to talk to me. And trust me, I wasn't wrong. Look at now. And it's going to get even more interesting. So evolution, and the most incredible thing happened was that I kept on meeting with central banks and say, guys, I think we better start thinking about a central bank digital currency because all these new private coins are going to compete with you and people will stop using your coin. And you know what happens when people stop using the coin issued by a central bank? Very simple. The central banks lose power. And that is something they don't want to lose. And then, so everybody was ignoring me, of course. They didn't want to meet with me. Monica got away, you know, because I know them. I worked with them for many years. And then a magic thing happened in the world. Facebook. Facebook came with the idea. They're going to issue a stable coin for the 2-point-something billion people that are using Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. Guess what? The Chinese and everybody, I call it the you know, like chickens without head, they panic and say, oh no, if Facebook is going to issue this coin, we're going to lose 2.3-something billion of people out of our influence. And that's when China said, I'm issuing my stable coin. Please be aware the coin issued by China is not decentralized. China is an authoritarian government. They want to control. They want to see exactly what's going on. They will not respect your privacy. And therefore, just be careful using this central bank digital currency with the Chinese. That's all I'm saying. It's a fact, you know, so I'm not, as I said, I'm not politically correct. I'm just being honest. Okay, so in summary, evolution. The evolution, really, traditional finance started evolving. We heard about the fintechs. You know, we have in Europe many what we call neobanks. It's an app. They don't have branches. It's all electronic. But even the neobanks are going to be disrupted. And that's why just watch the space as to what Revolut is going to be doing. Fascinating. Watch the space as to what PayPal is going to be doing. Watch the space that every credit card company will have to transform because of exactly this change. And then finally, the most fascinating topic for me, which I can't wait to talk to you about next week, is really the world of decentralized finance, because that is going to be the bottom line of what the world will be doing in the next 10 years. Yeah, it's just, you read it later, more history, more evolution. But the reality is that when the banks say, no, but why are we doing all this if the banking system works? I keep on saying, really? You are asking me to give you a faster horse. I'm giving you a car. And you cannot even begin to comprehend what this car is going to do. And that's because they're so stuck in their current reality, they cannot connect to Satoshi's idea of this new world order, which is the internet of value. Okay, just bear that in mind, very much. Okay, let's talk about Bitcoin. Let's talk about Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin. Okay, you have to understand, I love Bitcoin, I love ETH. I love them because I come from South America, Latin America. We have had so many banking failures. People have lost their money, nothing, everything's gone. In Africa, we had bank failures. The money disappeared. You guys had your own little crises too. Remember Greece, that people couldn't take the money out? This is the first time we're going to offer the world freedom of their own money. And nobody's going to have to tell you whether you can take the money out of the bank account, because you will have your own wallet and you will control your money and you will be able to move. Look at what happened in Afghanistan. People left with nothing, not even a suitcase. Those people lost everything. Imagine if those people could have taken a USB, or not even a USB, that all of this information is in a cloud because they keep the private keys in their memory bank, the seed words of the access to the crypto, or really access to a cloud where all that information about money, about the degrees, about the history, medical history, all of that in a cloud. And it doesn't matter if you have to leave a country in a hurry. Do you know what a game changer that is for people's quality of life? So Satoshi, thank you for everything you've done. But as you can see, it's all about replacing the middleman and replacing it with this mathematical formula. And no need to have a trusted third party. And that includes everybody, any intermediary, you name it. I'm not going to go into great detail as to how Bitcoin gets mined. The main thing you must understand, the most important thing, is that this is not like traditional bankers will say, but this is vaporware. This is not vaporware. Do you know that the ledger of Bitcoin, it's absolutely complete, transparent, accurate. From the first Bitcoin ever mined until today, you will have a ledger that there's more than 10,000 miners that keep a copy of the ledger. The copy, it's replicated. Remember, single version of the truth. Everybody sees the same ledger, but it's replicated. Try hacking the Bitcoin network. You need 51% of hackers to do that. Impossible, because it needs a lot of electricity, actually. Are you able to see the books of your bank where you put your money? Are you? You're not. So you don't even know what's going on in the books. You might see it once a year if the bank is listed and they produce the accounts. Really? In Bitcoin, your record of your ownership, it's secure. And that's all, and nobody can touch it. And that's all you need to know. Okay. The ledger, that blockchain, is what makes it unbelievable. Then this is also incredible. Really, people compare. You go to a bank, okay, you stand in a queue, it's batch processing, it takes 2 to 3 days to process. They charge you ridiculous amount of money for keeping an account. They don't even pay you interest if you keep the money in the account. Some banks charge you to keep the money in the account. Who would leave any money in a bank today, really? Then you have the Bitcoin ecosystem and many others. It works any time of the day. There's no public holidays. You don't phone anything. It's real time, hardly no charges, and only needs the internet. And we are building technology that doesn't even require data to access your account. And you have your independence in your hand. Why would you ever want to be with a bank? I don't know. The same with credit cards. We all know how much they charge the intermediaries. All that will disappear. It will be peer to peer, the buyer to the seller, no one in between in the internet. So I've got a lot of slides that try to explain to you why I believe in Bitcoin. And that applies also to ETH. So remember, the record is held in a public ledger. It's resilient, it's stable. It has redundancy because it's difficult to hack. It's peer-to-peer. It supports offline payments. You can do micropayments, tiny payments, €1. Why? Because it's not costly. It's so cheap. Many banks don't allow little payments, no? Small payments, because the whole machinery of payments is so expensive that they can't allow it. Single version of the truth, I told you. Great, it's immutable. Remember, blockchain is immutable. Nobody can change the ledger. This is also a fantastic slide that I want you to, whenever you are in doubt as to whether or not you should be investing in Bitcoin, just look at this slide. Look at the issue that Bitcoin is scarce. Did you know there's only 21 million ever to be issued, ever? So if you are a little bit of an economist or a mathematician or an accountant, there's a simple graph that I can give you. In economics, you have supply and demand. So if your supply is short, because it's only 21 million, and the demand carries on increasing because people woken up to the reality of the beauty of Bitcoin, guess what happens to the price? The price goes up. It's simple economics of supply and demand. Why would you ever invest in a fiat currency that is supported by a central bank that it keeps on printing? And if they print, they're debasing, the value reduces on the same principle. Why would you want to invest in gold? Gosh, look at the price of gold. I've got better slides to show you. Look at this. I don't need to speak about this slide. You can see it for yourself. I'm not saying bet your farm. I'm just saying at least 10% of your portfolio. Everybody knows in portfolio management, we've got here an asset manager, Javier, that in portfolio management, you have different levels of risk. So part of your portfolio should be in crypto. There's no doubt about that. And in DeFi and in this new world order until you become more aware and comfortable. But this is the way the world is moving. The other thing that you need to understand, I told you, the network effect. You know, this is not centralized. You don't have one central bank looking after the money, the dollar, the euro, the ECB, the Federal Reserve Bank. This is a network of people in the internet, open source developers, all supporting the network. It is simple. Bitcoin is very simple because it was created by Satoshi as a cryptocurrency, as a currency, nothing else. Ethereum becomes more evolved because it was not created specifically just for cryptocurrency. It was created really to be the platform where applications are built. It's like the Apple ecosystem, that you have apps that work in the Apple ecosystem. Ethereum is more a platform for applications. And that's why DeFi is built in Ethereum. The non-fungible tokens, I think you had the lecture already, on Ethereum mainly. Why? Because of the functionality that it has. But the main thing you must not forget is the concept of decentralization. Power back to the people, empower everybody, even children that are told how to play with an iPad when they're little and that they know how to send emails. We're going to train our children from the time they're little to get their allowance in Bitcoin so that they can learn from the beginning to be financially independent, not depend on their husbands, girls, or some, I don't know, authority. We want to empower everybody, anybody in the world to have financial independence. And now we have the way to do this. Also, as I said, inflation. Inflation is when you print. You know, I want to show you something. I don't know if you can see this. I don't know if you can see it. You know, it's a note, okay, of the Central Bank of Zimbabwe. The note is for $1 billion. $1 billion buys you a chewing gum. $1 billion, one chewing gum. That's what happened in Zimbabwe. They had to stop using this money because they had debased it to such an extent. Nobody wanted it, not even as toilet paper. Please be aware what countries are doing. Of course, confiscation. You know, all of a sudden you wake up one morning, it happened in many countries, and the banks are closed, and the government said, all the money you've got in your account belongs to the government. Huh, really? Okay. Censorship, China. Remittances, 10 to 50% to the poor people in El Salvador and many countries in the world. This is but plain criminal. And then, of course, I showed you store of value, the immutability, and the fact that it's decentralized. 50,000 notes. There we are. I got it wrong. 50,000 notes. 50,000 copies of the ledger. This is also just a simple example of how much the market value of Bitcoin is at the moment. You can read that later. This is also fascinating, and you will see that the first countries to implement central bank digital currencies will be the emerging markets. Why? Because we have so many challenges in our banking system that this is the no-brainer in terms of implementing something that you can give your people, your citizens, access to this fantastic technology. I will cover that later. This is incredible how slowly but surely the institutions are coming. They're waking up that they should not miss the bus, you know? So yeah, a lot of people think that it's too late. It's never too late. Then this is also another, we call it FUD, which is create this fear. So people that don't like Bitcoin, but they say, no, it uses a lot of electricity, it's bad for the environment. Really? Now, compared to other functions. And the truth be told is, you will see, mark my words, that Bitcoin will be the first one to encourage use of natural energy. That's why El Salvador, that has got volcanoes, are going to start mining using natural volcanic energy. In Wyoming, that they've got excess oil production that is not being used, they're going to mine using the excess. Wyoming, Texas, you will see the changes that are going to come because of mining of Bitcoin. These are some of the countries, as we know, in order to make money when you do mining, you need a source of energy that is cheap. Electricity must be for free. And therefore, you will find that most of the mining rigs are in countries where electricity is quite cheap. I don't know if you heard in the recent weeks, China has banned the mining in China, and is also banning crypto. And guess what? The price didn't blip, meaning we're back to normal prices. The Chinese can go and leave us alone and have their own little money, because we have money that protects the people. So this I want you to read. Whenever you're in doubt, whenever you say, what did this lady speak to me about? Stop and read this slide, because it will tell you exactly why Bitcoin is here to stay. And here also, because people get confused, you know, that people always think that blockchain is Bitcoin. Actually, blockchain is the ledger of everything. Bitcoin is just one cryptocurrency. So whenever someone gets confused, please show them this slide and read it yourself, so you will see the massive difference. I didn't give you the lecture on blockchain, but I can assure you blockchain is the basis of everything. And then on that ledger is when all these other new inventions are coming. And crypto, Bitcoin is one of them. Okay, so now let's go into Ethereum. This is really my favorite coin. Of course, it should be my favorite coin because I work for ConsenSys. ConsenSys was created so that we could build applications in the Ethereum platform. We have codified assets, which is a sandbox for any type of tokens. We have codified payments for any type of coins, and it's a plug and play. Anybody wants the technology, in a couple of weeks, we connect them, and you can go ahead and be part of this new world order. Think of Ethereum as the world computer. Definitely, we know that what Bitcoin does for payments, Ethereum does for anything. Anything that you want to invent in the blockchain ecosystem, Ethereum is the platform to use. And ETH, the coin, is what we call gas. It's what you need to pay for using the Ethereum platform. Okay? So now let's understand the big difference. The beauty of the Ethereum platform is that it has the biggest number of developers. It's open source. Anybody can come and improve the platform. There are already 350,000 developers globally. It's the world's largest blockchain technology community. And therefore, that's what is very important. You know, when I see some countries buying into platforms that are private and permission, I feel so sorry for them, because the whole idea of this technology is that you do not get stuck in a walled garden. You are going to benefit from the open internet. The open internet is the most important thing. It must not have walled gardens. It must be able to access everybody in the world. When you create something for your company, your vision must not be Spain, must not be South Africa, must be the world. This is the internet. As you can see, this is just an example of all the projects that we have implemented already at ConsenSys. And this is also to show you the ecosystem. The ecosystem has got standard setters and users and wallets. Everything has been built already, so that we call them the newbies. You people are the newbies. You knew The newbies will come in an environment where all the technology has already been built, which is fantastic because we, the builders, have been taking years and years to get to this point. So when the new people wake up, they will come to a world that has been built like the internet. And then I'm sure you covered that already in your lectures, the difference between public and private. The world is moving to the public. You know, when the internet started, we all started in intranets. We were all scared to send emails to each other. And then we realized, oops, I think we can use the internet. And then the world opened up. And this is exactly what's going to happen with the Internet of Value. And as I said, if is many things. Remember, store of value, medium of exchange, unit of account. Well, if is even better than that. You've got the store of value because it increases value. It's also a capital asset because you can take your ETH and you can stake it. Stake it meaning you put it into an account in a DeFi protocol and you earn interest. You earn interest on your ETH. And then it's also gas, it's a consumable. Why? Because you need gas to create an NFT. You need to pay with ETH. And therefore, it's also a unit of count and a medium of exchange. That's why we call it the ultrasound money. And I hope you all subscribe to Bankless and you're listening to the podcast. Listen to the ultrasound money podcast. It's beautiful. The one on the metaverse. There's so many beautiful podcasts that you need to put yourself up to date. This is just for you to read later, the evolution. Of course, I hope that you covered the difference between proof of work and proof of stake. Ethereum layer 2 is being developed. So we're moving from proof of work to proof of stake, and therefore the cryptography that will be used in Ethereum will not consume the same electricity that is consuming now because it's going to be a different type of cryptography. But I am assuming you covered this already. And this is also fascinating, very important. Look at now. The one question my clients always ask, he says, how many transactions per second? Yes, today, only 30 transactions per second. But the layer 2 that is going live next year is going to be 100,000 transactions per second. Look how it will completely decimate the credit card. That's my alarm, my alarm. Very quickly, let me finish with this so we can go into question and answer. But can you see the changes that are coming? These are just comparisons for you to read. All the other platforms, please be very careful about these other platforms. If they are not decentralized, if they are not open source, if they are controlled by people you don't know who they are, you do not want to go to anything that is not open source. Clearly, as you can see, also the volumes of transactions, and also it's absolutely true that at the moment, the cryptocurrencies are mainly used by people, not by institutions, and it's mainly the millennials, the younger generation, because I think that baby boomers, 50 and up, are horrified by this technology. There are many coins. They're all very new. Be careful. Some are very good. Some are very not so good. So just be very careful what you get involved in terms of the alternative coins. Here, a lot of description on the various coins. And then I gave you a lot of information on each coin so that you know what you're getting into. Read your notes and be careful. And this, I think it's one of my last slides, is to show you that there's an explosion of cryptocurrencies exchanges. The fascinating thing about this is that most of these exchanges that are so successful just trading cryptocurrencies are going to now go into the world of traditional finance by using the same rails that they use for crypto for tokens. So when I left the company I created, I said, you guys will not exist in 10 years' time. Why? Because the number of listed companies in traditional exchanges will completely reduce. And I am right. Already we can see people are not listing in exchanges, legacy exchanges, as much because the new centralized cryptocurrency exchanges are now creating tokenized securities. And they're going to move into the DeFi world and compete head on, all of them. So good timing, eh? Wow. Okay, so now I'm going to stop sharing and then let's open for questions, but only the areas we covered so far. which is cryptocurrencies. I will now cover after the question and answers. I'll control the time. I will cover the central bank digital currencies and stable coins. Ask me questions.
Yeah, Monica, back to the slide of top list exchanges, and I'm being aware that China recently, they banned all the transactions in crypto in China. What happens if they decide to close most of the exchanges that people operate and people use to buy and sell cryptos? Do you think this is a threat?
The answer is no, because already they started closing the exchanges. I don't know if you've been reading lately, the exchanges have been closed, all the mining rigs are gone. This is the internet. Nobody's going to stop them. I attended a lecture, very confidential lecture, that shows that China is creating their own internet. So it's going to make it compulsory. So people trading with China to use this other internet that they want to control. But nobody can stop the internet. You see the point, Javier? It's really fascinating to watch. Let the Chinese do their own crazy stuff, but let the people have the freedom to choose if you don't live in an autocratic government.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Questions?
I actually have another question. I have something to add to what you've been saying about regular banks. So just to give you a small background, I spent 2 years working in the command center of PayPal. So I had the opportunity to watch real-time transactions, how they fly. So basically, between the banks, you just compile all the transactions and create one settlement job. So the actual interaction between the banks, it's just once a day. So it's not real-time, obviously. Second thing, I think it's supply and demand. So I just verified that in 2020, on Earth, it was 56.1 million millionaires, right? So obviously in 2021, with the money printing over trillions here in the USA, we have way more than 56 now. So even if you divide, how many millionaires each person decide to buy one Bitcoin, it's not going to be enough. So that's one of their driving factors. And also, you mentioned centralized open source projects, right? I just would like to say that there is a difference between open source and centralized projects. There are many projects that are open source. However, they are still controlled by their, they need some nodes, right? So if it's centrally controlled node, even the project is open source, there is still a place in the world where you can just kick the office door and just shut down the machines, which happens multiple times with, like, for example, recently with that, what's the platform, Patreon, I think, when the Amazon shut down. So regardless of the place, there are still possibilities to shut down those machines. So yeah, that's something I want to add.
Thank you, Val. That's why, did you see my word? Be careful. Decentralization. The closer, when I advise central banks, Central Bank of Romania, you hear, I keep on saying, the closer you stick to the philosophy of Satoshi, the more you will protect your people and the more people will want to use it. So
one more note, sorry. Yeah. Speaking of the banksters, actually, I call them banksters because if you decide to go to the bank and say cash out over 10K in US, they're gonna ask you where you're gonna spend this money to. So even though that's your money, it stays in your account and you just want to take it out, they're gonna ask you how you're gonna spend this money. So which is a weird question.
I call it the nanny state. Do you know, in America, if you want to invest in shares, because I come from the capital market, you have to prove that you know what you're doing. Really?
Yeah.
No, don't get me started.
They care about you. They want to protect you.
No, are we being treated like idiots? No, it's scary. Okay, but let me not start on that topic. Okay, I saw more hands. Lucia, you've got a question.
Yes, thank you, Monica. Monica, what is the place that you see? So for operations that are more long-term, like loans and mortgages, what is the space? What is the place for Bitcoin and blockchains in that kind of
Please
operations?
keep that question for the decentralized finance lecture.
Okay.
I'm gonna blow you away. Okay, Janosidora.
Yeah. Hi, Monica. My name is Dora Yanoshi, and actually, I didn't have a chance to introduce myself. But yeah, I come from banking sector, and actually, I'm working at compliance. And my question is actually related to this one. So, like you mentioned, like of course, there are many advantages of Bitcoin and of these cryptocurrencies. But my question actually relates to the fact: what's your opinion? What's your intake on the fact that within this term that we see, it's immediate transactions? How can this compliance perspective somehow being involved within terms of cryptocurrencies? I mean that there is a big network of people dealing with blockchain and these Bitcoins. So meaning that how can we check? How can we screen those people behind these transactions? Like, what's your? Thank you.
Very important. I want you to make a note. Go into chain analysis. Chain analysis. Have you heard of them? Chain analysis. Okay. Go into chain analysis. Fantastic company. What do? They've got technology that it uses artificial intelligence, and they can today track everything in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Remember, Bitcoin ecosystem is a ledger, immutable, complete from day one to real time. So imagine that you plug artificial intelligence that can start working out. Remember, the only thing you can see is a key, a public key, not a name. But eventually, with enough computing power, you can work out that that key is repeating, and therefore you can track it. They know exactly for every single ransomware, where the money came, where it went, how, which exchanges. It is like the most fascinating thing. I went to a lecture that they could track using blockchain technology. I'm going to use an example when we do the lecture on supply chain. They can track weapons of mass destruction using blockchain technology. And so what I'm saying to you is that your methods of compliance will have to be modified to cope with the idea that there's a ledger that is real time and that is complete and immutable and it's digital. So you will not need so many human beings. You're going to use more artificial intelligent type methodologies to track and to control compliance. Then we also are seeing fascinating, remind me on DeFi when I tell you the story, what Fireblocks is doing in terms of lending and compliance with KYC, AML. So can you see what I'm talking to you about? That the world is changing. The auditors will not come a year afterwards. The audit will be done real time. And therefore your job in compliance will be a more real time to be able to observe exceptions and track the information in the ledger. And you will have a node and you will have this ledger that everybody can see at the same time as everybody else. You won't have to rely on someone to send you an Excel spreadsheet as to what the bank is doing. The register, your regulator, will get real-time information of all the dealings of the bank. It's a game changer.
Yeah, but how can we then say that to what extent that information is reliable? So you know what I mean? Meaning on terms of now I'm working with different databases for terrorism and all these money laundering persons. Like this is gonna be always the question, like on which database do we rely on? Like how can be so much generalized? And like how can we take into consideration all those financial sanctions and embargoes that like always changing? But so, yeah, thank you.
Did you see the language you're using? Several databases.
Yeah.
Remember language in this world. Decentralized, single version of the truth. There's only one ledger. There's only one Bitcoin ledger. There's only one Ethereum ledger. Not many, only one. And you plug into it, it's immutable. It's complete. It's got a mathematical formula, cryptography that prevents cheating when the recording takes place. It's secure, and therefore you will rely on it, and you will use tools to help track the information that you need. Okay?
Thank you.
It's a new world that you're going to be living in. Other questions? We've got 3 minutes. Adrian,
I
sorry.
have one question, if you don't mind, about the example that you mentioned previously of currency exchange between two countries, Uruguay and South Africa. To my knowledge, these are two sovereign states. They have their own central bank, and I don't know if they have any trade agreement or other kinds of agreements. So I'm thinking, if you have a direct trade between two countries that are not subject to the same inflation control, to the same labor code standards, to the same taxation, do you see any, let's say, risk of breaching fairness of competition between, economical agents that maybe are subject to different regulations, so they bear different costs, but then this is not reflected in direct trade among two countries that don't have maybe a customs union, or they don't have a central bank like the member states of the EU are subject to the Eurozone, actually subject to the same central bank. So when they are not in a single system for trade and civil rights, even civil rights plays a role in the economy, because you could have forced labor or child labor, and this normally you don't do trade in the same frame with this kind of country. So how would you see the risk of breaching, let's say?
Adrian, thank you for the question. I will cover that in big detail in the second part of the lecture. Just remember, it's about stable coins that are being used to transfer money between two different central banks, or like you will read, download the paper MCD Bridge, the paper by the BIS, recent paper on building bridges between central banks. Different central banks will issue their own central bank digital currencies. People will either use stable coins to transfer between each other, or they will join the different blockchains in bridges. So we recently released a paper, ConsenSys released a paper, the project successfully done between Thailand, Hong Kong, China, the Saudis. This project, you can download the paper and you will see how we built a bridge between all the central banks so that we could do real-time transfer of value. There we are, the paper is already there. Fantastic. So everything is in the internet, you can read everything. That's the beauty, you know. So here is a university that you're attending that will guide you what to look for and to open your eyes to this new world order. Last question, and then we can move on, no more hands, but don't be shy, ask me another question. One more question. Are you shy? Okay, then we'll carry on. Hopefully we'll have more questions at the end. I love questions. Big questions clear the mind, no? Okay, so what I'm going to do is share my screen. Here. Okay, so here comes the new world order of central banks. So central banks are feeling very threatened. So that's why they realize that they have to do something, okay? But the truth is that I encourage them to do this. This is essential. Why? Because I'm sorry to say, but I don't trust Facebook. After what they did with data, that everybody knows, that they abuse our data and we share it freely and we let them, you know, sell our data and we don't care and we carry on using Facebook. Imagine now 2.3, let's say, billion people using Facebook's money. I'm sorry, I don't trust them. So I really hope that central banks will issue a central bank digital currency so that we can start educating the masses how to use this currency and for people to have choices. You could choose to use the euro central bank digital currency or the dollar or the rand or whatever. And you can still choose to use crypto or stable coins. It's all about choices, okay? I told you about the evolution of money from gold, then the central banks print the cash, the commercial banks are the ones that give loans and generate money into the system, and then we have crypto. And then we have all these new types of monies, which is stable coins and CBDCs. Have a look at this. This is also fascinating. Fascinating. Why? Because look at the needs of emerging markets and advanced economies. I'll give you an example. In America, for real, they've got this insurance that if a bank fails, the deposits are not lost. In most emerging markets, if a bank fails, sorry, you lost your money. And therefore, the interest, the needs of emerging markets for a new payment mechanism is much more important. And also the issue of financial inclusion. As I said, 1.7 billion people left out of the economy, no banking accounts, no access to any wealth creation. So imagine if you now create a CBDC that you can give access to everybody. I don't know if you heard that now Twitter, you can use your Twitter environment to send tips. So you could, in future, I actually said that many years ago, that in future, you know, for example, in South Africa, we have a lot of beggars. So in every corner, you know, you're standing at the traffic light, there's a beggar. In future, because people don't want to give them money because nobody wants to touch the coin and be close to a beggar because of COVID. So it's horrific that these people have to have a stick with a little cap, you know, so people will give them money. So the point is, in future, you will just have like either a tweet or a card that you will tap and be able to give tips and donations and pay to each other. Can you see how everything will change? And why is this such an amazing technology to be able to improve the quality of life? Now, the most important thing you will have to take with you about CBDCs, you need to know this is significant. Central banks only issue the coins and the notes. That's it. The rest of the money is issued by commercial banks. Commercial banks, as when you put your money with a commercial bank, you have the big risk, which is called counterparty risk. Counterparty risk, that means that you do not know if that bank is going to go under. If there is no insurance, the money is lost. Central bank money, as we know, is backed by the central bank and therefore represents a claim against the reserves of the bank, the central bank. And therefore, the chances are that that money will not be lost. You will hear that there's two types of central bank digital currencies. One is called the wholesale, the other one is the retail. Retail replaces cash. Wholesale replaces the interbank settlement system that happens overnight. Let me explain what I mean. Every night, every central bank in the world operates in the same way. It gets the balances of all the commercial banks that have accounts with the central bank, and then overnight, batch processing, mainframes, and Swift messages settles the bank balances between the banks. And that's why it's very difficult to sometimes get reflected. Let's assume that I pay you, that I'm with one bank and you are with a different bank. When I pay you, that amount doesn't appear in your bank account immediately. It takes overnight for it to reflect in the books of the other bank. And that will be replaced by a real-time settlement system, real-time settlement. As I said to you before, all the central banks are going crazy and they all want to introduce CBDCs, especially in the retail space. Why? Because China has now released their CBDC. So it's fascinating how it has put the fear on central banks. This is for you to read. I want you to apply your mind to the slide. It's very important. The difference between wholesale, national, and cross-border. Adrian, I think you asked me about the cross-border. This is the cross-border, how these banks are going to achieve. This is the project I mentioned. It's called the Lion Rock Infanon project. Read the white paper and see how they achieve the bridging of the central banks. Then you have the retail, different types of retail solutions by different central banks. As I said, wholesale, retail, and the cross-border. These are the three models. These are examples of proof of concepts that we have done at ConsenSys with central banks. Everything started with a wholesale. Why? Because everybody thought, wholesale is easy because it's not politically sensitive. Why is central bank digital currency retail politically sensitive? Because we will definitely reduce the need for banks. The moment you have a CBDC, you will rather have a CBDC that is supported by the central bank than have a counterparty risk with a commercial bank. This is a picture that I love because here is quite a little joke, how Satoshi saying, what the hell is this central bank digital currency? And then everybody, the fiat currencies, Bitcoin and stablecoins, look in disbelief because CBDCs are developing in something that it sounds like a real fruit salad. This is also what I said to you before. The emerging markets are going to be the first ones to introduce CBDCs. You can read about Project Sand of the Bahamas or the project in Cambodia. All of these white papers and actual project reports are absolutely free to be downloaded from the internet. This is a very important slide that I want you to look at. Have a look at the central bank. It shows how they create their own reserves. And as you can see, the CBDCs is part of the reserves of a central bank. And the deposits are, when you put money in a bank, in a commercial bank, your money is part of the balance sheet of the commercial bank. The bank uses your money to go and invest in long-term investments so that they can earn a return. And that's why those deposits could be lost, but CBDCs can't. And that's why if you have to choose between a CBDC or putting money in your bank account, you will always want to choose a CBDC. So what is going to happen is that CBDCs, central banks that don't want to decimate the banking system, they will put certain conditions. You can read this and apply your mind as to the conditions that will become applicable by some central banks. Other central banks will be more open, but we still don't know which way the world is going to go. I find it fascinating that the European Central Bank said that it's going to take them 2 years to research and 2 more years to implement a CBDC. In 4 years, the world would have used all the stable coins in the world and will start ignoring the euro. So I don't know why they're taking so long, because yes, there are some questions that are very complicated, but I think it's taking very long because they're trying to accommodate everybody. As I said, and I'm going to repeat it, the closer to a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin philosophy the CBDCs are, the more applicable, relevant, and easier to use by the citizens. And I love the quote by the Central Bank of England that said, I'm not here, the governor, he said, I'm not here to protect the banks. And therefore, banks are going to have to be very aware that if they don't change the business model, the disruption will be very big. One of the ways that the banks and payment service providers will be protected is that the central banks will not want to deal with the man in the street. So what they're going to say to the banks and the payment service provider is, you deal with the opening of accounts, KYC, AML, I will just give you the right to do this. Great opportunity for new companies to come in and apply to become payment service providers. Remember the single version of the truth, ledger. So the ledger would be one ledger maintained by the central bank. And then accounts will be held by fintechs, payment service providers, and various banks. All of them will keep a copy of the ledger, the nodes. Remember the nodes? But the central bank will decide who has access, who can open accounts, and will have absolute view of all the transactions. This is just to show you one of the products that we created, which is a CBDC sandbox, so that if anybody wants to try out a CBDC model and learn, we give you a sandbox and you can practice. And if you want to create new money, we give you the platform, and in a couple of weeks, you've got the complete technology solution. This is just to show you that for the central bank, the direct model where you have to go and open the account on behalf of the client It's very expensive, and that's why it's not a good one. On the intermediated model, which is when the central bank allows banks and payments providers to open the account, it's very easy for them. But many are going to have a hybrid. So let's read the BIS papers and see which way the central banks are going to go. The most important thing I want to remind you is that central banks have got a chance once and for all to use blockchain technology. Many will not use it. Many will still go for a central database. Many will miss out on understanding this technology. The one thing is for sure is that many have realized that the money can be programmed. And what do I mean? CBDCs could be programmed so that you cannot spend it on gambling or pornography, and that you have to pay your taxes. And the programmability comes from the concept of the smart contracts. Remember, if this happens, therefore that happens, programmability will be built on the CBDCs. Composability is this application I will explain in much more detail in the DeFi class, but it's the ability for this technology to be used and interact and integrate with all the other technologies that are being built. That's very important. That's why one CBDC should be able to integrate and be exchangeable with another. And then, of course, no reconciliations, and hopefully they will respect the philosophy of the decentralized concept. The one thing I have to tell you is that already I heard that the Digital Dollar Project and the ECB project will respect confidentiality up to 10,000 euros. Above 10,000, they will ask you to disclose. This is what the technology would look like. On the left-hand side, you've got the current technology and all the RTGS, the merchant bankers, the credit cards providers. And then on the right-hand side, as you can see, it's a simple technology, internet, digital currency ledger, one version of the truth, wallet providers, and then wallets that you download for free, and you can access this technology from wherever in the world you are. This is from the Bank of England, where they're trying to explain that you're going to still have banknotes, then the CBDC, and still they're going to promote the use of banks, creating bank deposits and e-money. So that's retail. Now let's go into wholesale. Wholesale, as you can see, the developed countries, mainly developed countries, went for the wholesale. Why? Because it was just a project that they could do between the banks. It doesn't affect the public. So many use cases have been implemented, not implemented, but proof of concepts. They're still researching. We did in South Africa Project Coca. If you go to the website of the South African Reserve Bank, you'll see the paper explaining in great detail how this project was very successful. This is a picture of the project where we have all these banks, all of them settling real time, and the central bank was able to see everything. But every bank couldn't see each other's balances. So it was very, very successful. Then this is a very sophisticated proof of concept that was done by the Monetary Authority of Singapore. As you can see, this is very much for applications at a higher level in capital markets, for bonds, money markets, equities, supply chain, and trade finance. This, I listed all the projects, so if you want to go into this in a deeper dive, I recommend you download the white papers, you read exactly how all the POCs have taken place. And if you love the topic, then you can start comparing one to the other. Okay, this is stablecoins. Stablecoins are a new form of money. It didn't exist before. Why did they come about? Simple, because the world realized that Bitcoin was fantastic, but it did not create the ability to be a unit of account or a medium of exchange. Why? Because the value fluctuates and you cannot exchange something. Imagine, you know that the first Bitcoins were used to buy a pizza. That pizza today would have been worth millions and millions of dollars if they had not bought the pizza with the Bitcoin. So that's exactly the reason why we know we cannot use Bitcoin to buy a pizza, and therefore we need something more stable. So what is a stable coin? A stable coin is actually like a Bitcoin, but it's collateralized. So it's a digital coin that uses the Ethereum ecosystem, for example, and you collateralize. What does it mean? Let's assume you take, for example, USD coin, USDC. A company called Circle created USDC, which is very, very well accepted and used. Or Paxos is another one, very, very accepted, which is all backed by the dollar. So in a bank account, there's an actual account that Circle owns that says dollar account, fiat. That fiat, it's then a one-to-one equivalent to the USDC that has been issued in circulation. Circle knows that in order to be reliable, they have to publish the audit report on a monthly basis to show that the fiat is truly collateralized, because we have understanding that there are other coins, stable coins, that even though they say they have been collateralized, in fact, they are not collateralized. So be very careful which stablecoin you work with. Then we have other stablecoins collateralized by gold or diamonds or oil, commodities. Then we have stablecoins collateralized by crypto. But because it fluctuates, what would happen, for example, if you got, for example, the stablecoin called Make a Die, you will be asked to collateralize 150% to cover the fluctuations. And if the fluctuations are big, you have to do margin calls. So that is a different type of collateralization mechanism. And then there's others that are not collateralized by anything, but simply by a mathematical formula. Which this is to show that most of the stable coins have been launched and used in the Ethereum platform. This to show you the trading. As you can see, USDC by far is the one that gets traded the most, because normally what happens is you buy crypto, but then you've got to pay your rent. So you're not going to pay your rent with Bitcoin. So you transfer some of your Bitcoin into USDT or USDC, a stable coin, and that is one-to-one back to the dollar, and therefore you pay your rent in a fiat-backed stable coin. This, Val, you're going to appreciate this slide, because I took to compare, I compared PayPal to stablecoins. As you can see, stablecoins are open in general. They really are open source. Money by PayPal, it's a walled garden. It's controlled by the central database of PayPal. Stablecoins can be used for any application in DeFi. PayPal, you have to apply to see if PayPal is accepted in this country, that merchant, In stablecoins, you will download for free any wallet. I recommend MetaMask. MetaMask is for free. You download it, and you can have any stablecoin in your wallet. If you want to have PayPal, you have to actually be hosted by PayPal. As I said, stablecoins are based on the blockchain and therefore the network effect. PayPal has the network effect, but it's controlled by them. Stablecoins are transparent. Why? Because of the blockchain, and the PayPal ledger, it's absolutely private. So once again, as to explain how different is stablecoins from e-money, completely different. Stablecoins earn yield in PayPal, e-money is not allowed. And stablecoins, anybody can create a stablecoin. I can assure you that all the credit card companies will create their own stablecoins. Many banks in the world will have their own stablecoins. We're going to have an amazing number of stablecoins of different quality of collateral available to use in the world. And that's why PayPal, if you have a look at how they're transforming, they're allowing cryptocurrencies. They are going to issue their own stablecoin because they know that the model of centralization will be disappearing. This is JP Morgan, fantastic company, what they did. JP Morgan has got many branches around the world. So transferring money from one branch to another in different currencies was very expensive. So what they created was the Onyx, which is a coin that they use internally for their own transactions. They save hundreds of dollars and simplify the back office function because of this. This is also an important slide, so you can see the difference in latency, in efficiencies, and once again, compare the difference between a stablecoin and a traditional payment service. You were asking me about cross-border. Cross-border will stop being using SWIFT. Cross-border will start either use stablecoins or will use bridges between the various central banks or bridges between the various coins. But remember, composability, one coin will be able to be transferred with it another. So if let's say JP Morgan coin will be transferable and exchangeable with a Goldman Sachs coin. And therefore, all these transactions cross-border will be real-time and nearly for free. Or we have like, I'm sure you heard about Ripple. Ripple was built just for the purpose of remittances using that platform. But in reality, you don't have to be stuck to one ecosystem. You need to go to the one that has got the most network effects. As I said, stable coins will be issued by many central banks, and they will use this. I'll give you an example. In South Africa, we have in the region, it's called the Southern African Development Region of many central banks. They have the option either to build a bridge between each other or issue a stable coin so that the payments between, let's say, Tanzania and Zimbabwe is not using their coins, is used a stable coin that is backed by the dollar, and therefore it can be done in real time. The project that we just finished with Hong Kong, Thailand, and the UAE and the Bank of China, this one is the one released this week, which is called the CBDC bridge. It uses a bridge which connects each central bank to each other. This is examples how credit card companies are going to now use their network to allow different stable coins, and they will generate their own stable coin. So let me see the time. Okay. So now, before I carry on with where to for the banks, I want to stop here and I want to give you a chance because we still have time so that we can cover questions. I hope there are lots of questions. Do you want me to look at the chats and see what are the chats and follow the thoughts? I'm very surprised nobody has any questions.
No, I have some questions, Monica.
Good.
Regarding stable coins, for instance, Tether, or I don't know exactly how to pronounce that, there's a lot of noise about collateralization on one of the most liquid stable coins, as it is Tether. So obviously that's a threat in terms that if it's not fully collateralized and because of the amount of coins issued by Tether, it is obviously a threat for all the investors and also for all the altcoins, because at the end you will have a kind of effect on the whole ecosystem. So what's your opinion on that? I mean, it is really jitter for investors, isn't it?
Okay, so just remember the rules of finance apply, which is ask questions. And that's why there's a lot of, as you said, a lot of questions being asked about Tether. And as an ex-auditor, I wouldn't put my money into them. And that's why what we've seen is that Paxos, the other stablecoin, they went and published the audit report that confirmed that the number of stablecoins they issued are completely backed by dollar reserves. Then we also heard Circle that issued USDC. They are doing two things. They are first getting a banking license, so they're going to be regulated as a bank. And number two, they plan to list. So they're going to be regulated as a listed company. And they know they need to publish in real time the reserves. There shouldn't be an argument. And you will see when we cover DeFi next week that I'm going to encourage you that before you invest in any of those protocols, which remember is just a smart contract, that you look into the website and see the audits that have been done on the smart contract, because the main thing is that someone must audit the protocol to make sure that the protocol won't disappear tomorrow. No, you don't want it to disappear because there's no one to phone, people. So in the same way you apply skepticism, and Dora, in your compliance, you're skeptical. I want you to be skeptical about this new world, because you know what, I'll give you an example. It's so sad. South Africa had two of the biggest Ponzi schemes, frauds in cryptocurrencies since the creation of Bitcoin. Two. Why? Because someone went to tell South Africans, give me your money, I'll invest it in Bitcoin. Give me your money, invest in Bitcoin. I think that Satoshi would want to die just thinking that happened, because the whole idea is that you should not have to give the money to anybody but yourself. You download the app, you download the wallet, and you are your own bank. You don't have to ask permission. Don't give the money to anybody. Do it yourself. Keep your private key safe. Yes, it's scary to keep your private key safe. It's scary because nobody wants to take so much responsibility. But I really think that you are all educated and you're going to get to the point that you will not ever want to trust anybody else but yourselves with your own money. And that is the point of this new world order. Okay, so do your homework, ask questions, join the discussion groups, join tweeting. The Twitter ecosystem will tell you what's going on. Every day I listen to a podcast or I read, and I know where to put my money and where not to put my money. You know, there's some exchanges that the regulators are going to close down. Don't leave your money with the exchange. Motto, not your money, not your private keys, not your crypto. If you leave your money in the exchange could be hacked. Not the blockchain, the exchange is hacked. If you don't have that money out of the exchange, you don't have your money. It's with the exchange. Do you know, in capital markets, stock exchanges are not allowed to do custody. So why are we allowing exchanges, cryptocurrency exchanges, to do custody? The rules of finance shouldn't be thrown away. It's the same rules, but we mustn't lose sight of basic key principles. Ask questions. Don't invest in what you don't understand. Don't give money to someone else to invest it on your behalf. Don't bet the farm. No, keep your private key safe in a cold storage. I don't know if you've covered the concept of wallets and cold storage and hot storage, but don't leave it with the cryptocurrency exchanges. Did I answer your question, Xavier?
Yes, indeed, Monica. Thanks.
Pleasure. Oh, Mar Consul.
Hi, Monica. Having a lot of fun. Quick question, because we're talking about the stablecoin and as well as CBDC. So for me, El Salvador, for example, why did you explain why he went to Bitcoin coming from his profile and instead of having chose, for example, a stablecoin? I know that his motive was the US dollar, right? The parity and the terms of the emerging, but being an emerging economy, why did he do that?
Very simple. How do I explain? For me, I was so happy, that day when he announced that he's making Bitcoin legal tender. Yes, of course, hell broke loose because the IMF is upset and the World Bank and everybody's going, just remember, let's put things in perspective in El Salvador. 70% of people of El Salvador, they don't have bank accounts. And the majority depend on remittances from the US. It comes via Western Union. Western Union charges between 10 to 50% for transfers. If the value that you transfer is small, the charges are fixed. They take 50% of that. So this president that understands Bitcoin realizes that if they want to give freedom to his people and uplift them, what better way than to do this? And then all the Bitcoin maximalists are now going to El Salvador to say, I want to invest, I want to help the people, I want to make this a reality. I'm going to be here to educate. This another kid, 27-year-old, you please listen to those podcasts, are unbelievable in what the Bitcoin did, or in Anthony Pompiano interviewing Jack Ma. Jack Ma. What did he do? He took the Bitcoin ecosystem and created the Lightning Network and a company called Strike. You can download the app, and this app enables people to use Bitcoin in a safe way. So he started in a beach in El Salvador. That's how the whole idea started. And because he was doing this, the president read about Jack, and he says, if they can do it in the beach, and these people are opening accounts and paying with Bitcoin so easily, I can do it for the country. And look at this, it's such a miracle. Who knew about El Salvador in the world? Now he's going to use volcanoes to mine Bitcoin. Do you know what it's going to do to that country? It's going to be a game changer. He's going to uplift people day one, from the beginning, So I don't know if you heard that Cuba said that they will allow Bitcoin. Cuba, when Cuba didn't even allow the US dollar. I don't know if you've been to Cuba, you couldn't pay with the US dollar. It was seen to be the money of the bad people, whatever. So the point is, how you're going to uplift people, because as I gave you this lecture on Bitcoin, and it's freedom immediately. Stable coins, let me remind you, are private. It's not decentralized. It's not open. It's USDC is owned by Circle. Paxos is owned by Paxos. And why should a government rely on one legal entity to make them rich when you have the decentralized Internet of Value available to anybody in the world? And already, El Salvador, if I want to say, if you live in El Salvador, I could send you money real time today. I don't have to ask permission or pay anything. That's all. And he's going to then educate his people to use this Internet of Value. From that education, trust me what I'm going to tell you, from that education, the little kids are going to start saying, the younger generation will only know Bitcoin. And therefore, they will know the Internet, and they will know the world, and will trade with the world real time. Because just remember, payments is only one side of the transaction. Delivery versus payment. If you want to buy, a book through Amazon, you need to pay. So imagine you're going to be able to buy anything in the world with Bitcoin in future, or stable coins backed, using the same system, real time, cheap, and all the controls. But remember, it's all about trying to not centralize. It's about using something that is decentralized, that nobody can control. China cannot control Bitcoin. China, the most autocratic country ever, and powerful country, is going to apply, you will see, it's going to apply pressure on the countries that are trading with China to say, you owe me money, you can only pay in the electronic yuan. And slowly but surely, I'm scared that the African countries that are so dependent on China will become slaves to this Chinese coin. So that's why when you read the literature, everybody's saying to the government of America, this is your chance not to do the same things that China is doing, and liberate people and allow the Internet. I don't know if you know the story, but the Internet in Europe was banned in many ways. So what happened? All the developers moved to the US. So Silicon Valley took place because Europe banned the Internet. Is that what you want? Or do you want to open up to this new world order? And that's what he's doing. I think it's fantastic.
No, I think it's fantastic. I mean, that's why, I truly agree with what you're saying. But for me, what's his name, Kubele, the president, it's the opposite of wanting decentralization. That was my question.
Yeah, look, we all have, we always say in our world, our planet, we say, Bitcoin doesn't need heroes. So, you know what? Let's see where he takes this, because as we know, he's an autocratic sort of personality. But he did a good thing, So let's see, but it doesn't matter if he goes crazy and he becomes, a dictator. Who's going to stop Bitcoin?
I don't know, of course. It was just to know like what you were thinking of. But
yeah. So I love it. Other questions? Any questions, guys? Come on.
Man.
Yeah.
So,
Val, talk to me. Did you get upset that I mentioned PayPal?
I don't work for them anymore, so
good. No, that's good.
to be honest with you, I don't care. Anyway, let me disagree a bit about authorization of people. So I disagree that US is trying to do it. In fact, they're quite opposite in this case. So I don't think that's the way it's gonna go. And second of all, I just want to
wait. Val, I didn't understand what you say. What is it that you disagree with? What?
With the US liberating people. So that there will be no liberty, or there will be no freedom for people here.
Oh, in America?
Yes. Well, we're talking about the United States and Canada in particular.
In which way do you think? In which way do you think you're not free? I thought you were.
Yeah, that's Hollywood movies.
Really? Wow. Okay, let's not get into politics. Fine.
Yeah, let's not get into politics.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just want to touch a bit what said about stablecoins, right? As you mentioned, those are private companies, right? Even though they have some sort of audits, they still have a smart contract. And tomorrow the wind can change, and the smart contract can be, let's say, you have a vault without KYC, so all your assets can be frozen overnight. So that's something that's we need to be cautious about.
Agree. So remember, stablecoin. I still think, the cryptocurrencies is the way to go. But at the moment, because they fluctuate, you use it if you really have to, not because you really should.
There are alternatives such as Heaven protocols right now being developed, and there are ways around this. However, it's a quite dangerous move because it drives the market up because they can print as much as they want, basically, or they claim, right? So it drives the price up, and that can be again very dangerous because the market can change direction overnight.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's an experiment. That's why don't bet your phone. Yeah. Thank you, Val. Good points. Very good points. What happened to the rest of the team? Guys, hello.
I also have a question, Monica.
Yes, excellent.
Do you see a scenario where one country can have several CBDCs, like we have a JP Morgan coin, and then we will have a Wells Fargo coin, and we will have a Fed coin? And if so, how will retailers and other banks or even other countries trade with them? How will it work?
Definitely you'll see. And I can assure you that all the American banks will have a stable coin backed by the dollar, because remember, they want to be faithful to the dollar, and the Federal Reserve Bank is going to put pressure, which is what happened with Facebook. I don't know if you know the story. It was fascinating. So quick story, and you'll see it's going to be repeated, the story, So what happens is Facebook originally went to Switzerland and said to the Swiss regulators, I will create a legal entity and I will be regulated by you guys, the Swiss, and the coin that I'm going to issue is going to be backed by a portfolio, of shares of different coins. They were really not very transparent as to how the collateral will work. And then when hell broke loose, Mark ended up in the Senate. I don't know if you remember the Senate interviews, which were quite funny because the senators didn't even know what to ask him, and the comments were quite sad because they showed that they don't understand. So eventually they gave him so much help that he had to stop the project in Switzerland. So the coin used to be called Libra, then it became DM. And then DM is now being issued in America, and he promised it will be backed by dollars. Remember the whole history that I gave you was to show you how the dollar became supreme. And it's still supreme. And they're going to fight to make sure that that happens. So to answer your question, yes, stable coins, but backed by the dollar. So the only thing that coin becomes just a digital representation of the dollar. So JP Morgan coin and let's say Morgan Stanley coin will be, if it's backed by the dollar and I prove that it's backed by the dollar, should be interchangeable. Okay, in the same way that you have Visa, MasterCard, people will choose what to use, but eventually the market will be so transparent that you will know which one you can trust. How come we all use Visa and MasterCard and not so much Diners and American Express? The market eventually decides. Make sense?
Yes, I think so, but I just see a scenario where we can have like a bank, we can say HSBC, then they will hold 5 different US CBDCs, and how will they differ between those? Will they have to choose and say, oh, I like JP Morgan's better than Wells Fargo, so we will try not to use Wells Fargo's that much? Or how will it work?
Okay, I need to clarify something. CBDCs are issued by the central bank. Stablecoins by a private company. The two of them, totally different. Okay, remember, central bank digital currencies are obligation of the central bank. Okay, so, and there's going to be one central bank digital currency by each central bank. The difference is that the CBDCs will be able to be interchangeable because it will use, let's say they will all be in the Ethereum platform, for example, but they, in the same way I showed you all the projects, they will build bridges and they will be able to interchange. Currently the technology in capital markets, I'll give you an example. The Central Securities Depository in South Africa cannot interact with the Central Securities Depository in Euroclear or Clearstream. Why? Because the technology does not integrate. That's how bad the plumbing system of the world is. We created complete centralized walled gardens. But the new world order is that everything you build will be able to be interchangeable. So just think about the technology. The technology, if it's done properly, no walled gardens, and you use the network effect of, for example, Ethereum, then you will be able to use the coins, whatever coins they are, stable coins, central bank digital currencies, cryptocurrencies, in any type of scenario. That's why I'm convinced that our children will have an app and they will be able to decide. And you know what's going to happen? Some coins are going to give you interest. Some will let you vote. When I cover the DeFi world next week, you will see that many of these smart contracts give you tokens. And these tokens are simply the right to vote. You have the right to decide if the smart contract needs to be changed, if the smart contract needs to be improved, or it gives you rewards. And those rewards, you can actually trade them. And you'll be able to even use non-fungible tokens of the Mona Lisa that you bought, and you will be able to trade it and put it as collateral to take out a loan in Aave, which is one of the protocols of the DeFi world. Do you understand what I'm talking about? It's a world in the internet. In the same way you send emails, you will be able to send emails of money, interchangeable. My email to you is the same email you to me. No, I received the email. I don't have a problem. In the past, when the internet was created, it was complicated because nothing was talking to each other. Intranets. We broke the walled gardens and the world became one in communication. And the same will happen with money. Make sense?
Yes, thanks.
Cool. Excellent. Other questions? Anybody? We've got 10 minutes.
Speaking of clearing, if you may, on the companies that you mentioned, the clearing houses, Euroclear and Clearstream, is it just a technical incompatibility with the security depository from South Africa, if I understood well, or is it more than just, let's say, technical issue with interfacing with these clearing houses? Maybe we're missing the starting point, or we don't have enough understanding of this SWIFT-based agreements, or what exactly in the current situation in status quo is preventing this type of exchanges. It's not just technical, perhaps.
Yeah, to tell you the truth, I created the Central Securities Depository in South Africa. I ran it for 20 years, and we could not create a bridge because technology, the SWIFT messages that we used in South Africa are completely different to the one that we had in Euroclear and Clearstream. We did a project with several CSDs, Central Securities Depositories, just on collateral, to be able to transfer shares in straight to let's say, collateralize a loan in Europe and to put it in the Central Securities Depository in Clearstream. Just that project of a simple transfer of shares from one to another took 4 years, and I don't think that it went live. And it cost, you don't understand, the money and time. Why? Because the plumbing that we invented in the old legacy financial markets, it's centralized with many, many intermediaries. And therefore, it's very, very hard to have real-time information in the current plumbing system. That's why I don't know if you guys read what happened in America with the whole GameStop saga and Robinhood. Robinhood, a simple app that everybody thinks is so magic, whatever. Robinhood had to rely on the plumbing of the DTCC, which is the depository, and therefore, because of the time delay in settlement, which is 2 days, they had to put margin deposits that they didn't have, so they had to stop the trades. That is horrific, and that it's unacceptable, and it's not existing in the new world we are building. So that's why if the legacy financial markets do not get their act together, the cryptocurrency exchanges will start tokenizing all the investments, equities, bonds, money markets, treasury bills, everything. And they will then allow real-time trading in a blockchain technology, real-time, no borders, all in the internet. And that's going to be the end of legacy stock markets.
Yes, thank you.
Can you repeat that, Monica?
What part? What part did you miss?
The end of the stock market?
Yes, because people, why would anybody, I always say to my ex-employer, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, why would anybody come and put a listing at a stock exchange in Johannesburg that has got all these rules and regulations, walled garden, antiquated technology? You know, they use a technology called BDA, broker-dealer accounting system, to do allocations. It's 30 years old. I think it still has a green screen. So the cost of maintaining that, because as you know, most of the technology, the old technology, you know, there's not even engineers that know how to use the old technology anymore. So it's very costly. So why would anybody invest in walled garden stock markets when you will have cryptocurrency exchanges offering the same investments in Apple, Tesla, all of the shares, real time, very low cost, no intermediaries, wallet to wallet, and that your shares in Tesla, you'll be able to swap with your finger, no phoning the broker, not waiting for working hours. Sunday morning, you're sitting in the toilet, you're bored, and you start trading. You didn't phone the broker, and the settlement happened real time. Can you picture the world where you're going to be your own financial advisor, your own broker, your own custodian bank? Because in your wallet, you're going to have your custody of the shares, not sitting in a custodian bank. If you don't want to, of course, custodian banks will always have a role for those that don't want to look after themselves. But if you want to be free and do it yourself, you can. And that's the beauty of this new world order we are creating.
But at the end, you will have another type of stock market, the new token market.
Correct.
But at the end,
exactly, a new token. I like that, a new token market. That's exactly it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we got, let's say, 7 minutes. Come on, people, ask me questions.
All right, then I'll go if I may.
Yes, René.
Hi, Monica. Thank you very much, first of all. And you mentioned before something along the lines of CBDCs all working with one another. So I was wondering, that makes a lot of sense because, of course, we have national borders and national central banks and European one, for example, and they have to do their own thing and then meet each other somehow. If it even happens more or less in this sort of a way, how would you get this? Because you referred to it once or twice, but maybe I didn't get what you already said. You need some sort of reconciliation layer, right? How do you see that happening? Is that something that ConsenSys might build? Is everyone just going to migrate to the one coin to rule them all, Bitcoin, which is probably not technologically feasible, but then maybe Ethereum? Is there going to be something completely different that the whole world will then migrate to? Or is it going to be fragmented all over the place, but still sort of, is there going to be a unison? The baseline question, of course, is how is this tension field between decentralization and actually central banks by necessity are centralized? How is that going to be consolidated in your view?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question, you know, because for a central bank talking about decentralization is like, oh, you know, it's like if I told you, you know, that extraterrestrial people exist and here's the Martian, you know, you're going to look at me and say, what? The paradigm shift is so huge, okay, that the only reason they're doing it is because they have no other option, okay? So they're using the technology. So because the technology is so easy to integrate, the project in Asia, because each central bank doesn't trust each other. So China doesn't trust Hong Kong, doesn't trust Thailand. So they didn't go for the model of saying, what if we all create a stable coin? Now, imagine if I decided now, we're all going to create a stable coin backed by, let's say, the yuan, and in a bank account, we're going to put lots of yuan and create a stable coin that in this region, this is the central bank digital currency of the region. No, that would have been simple. But because there's no trust, what they're all going to do, they're going to create their own CBDCs, you know, the Thai, the yuan, the Hong Kong dollar, whatever. And they're going to build bridges. Because as I said, this is not Swift messages. This is like emails. It's the internet. Can you picture the internet of value? And yes, they're going to have to choose a platform. What we are seeing is that they're going to go for private permission platforms. But the beauty of Ethereum is that you can do private. We have a technology called Quorum, or you can go public. And because you choose the same standards, ERC standards, for the public or the private, moving money that is built, internet money built in the private, moving into the public, it's interchangeable. Make sense? But just remember, René, I just pray that the central banks will apply their minds to do what's right for the people, not for the banks. This is the chance, once in a lifetime, to do what's right for the citizens, you know, and therefore not like China that is doing this. Yes, look, let's give them 100% credit that their idea of CBDCs are going to empower a lot of people in China that live in remote villages, and that is also going to uplift financial inclusion. But they're not respecting the concept of privacy or the concept of decentralization. They're not using the distributed ledger, the blockchain. They're using a centralized database, blah, blah, blah. So I just hope in the goodness of humanity that the technology that Satoshi brought to the world is here to be taken and not to be abused. But, you know, There's good and bad in the world. So we'll see where it takes us.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing, especially these email messages between central banks that would still require a protocol platform, as you say. And that would be a very nice thing to see, like what's that going to move towards. So thank you very much for now.
Yeah, and you know, when I talk to them, the only thing I get from them is fear. And I said, guys, if you're going to be in fear of what you're building, God help us what you're going to build. You know, some workshops that I attend, I just think I just wasted an hour of my life, you know. It's terrible, I have to tell you. So yeah, they say you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find the prince, you know. So hopefully they'll find the prince, you know. And that's my role. My role in life, if you ask me, Monica, what is this job that you've got? You know, I should be retired. I don't need to work. But I work because I want to bring this information to the world because I've seen it all, you know. I'm too old. I've seen it all. I saw the first facts, trust me. So now I'm hoping that the leaders of the world, you know, will for once do the right thing, you know. Yeah. 2 minutes to go. Oh my God, because you're falling asleep and I'm trying to wake you. You know, it's quite late in South Africa. I'm never awake at this time of the night. Okay, now, but I love talking about money. Okay, can you see I love talking about money? Okay, so give me the last question so we can let you go. I'm not going to let you go until I get one more question. Okay, anybody?
I have one more question, but I had too many questions. So if you guys have other questions, you can
ask. Go for it. I love your questions.
So in the United States, we're facing a big issue about buybacks and companies bailout. Do you think crypto will help to solve this issue? Because right now it's a pure stock market manipulation. We see that the company is about to collapse. However, the company is still going up, right? For example, Tesla stock, right, is now worth more than Volkswagen, Ford, and Toyota combined, which they don't produce or own anything. So there is also a new company, Rimac, right, which is currently buying Bugatti, for example. So that seemed to be a bit weird in terms of financial, because it does not make any sense whatsoever. So do you think, how do you see it going to play out?
Well, I'm sorry to tell you the truth, but you will be able to manipulate things even easier. Because remember, you know the concept I told you about programmability? You'll be able to program anything into the money, you know. The only difference, and that's what I'm hoping, is because everything will be more transparent. And if you have many people that are actors in the blockchain, meaning the nodes, many people that can see what's going on, we will get to see this faster immediately. You know, everybody will know. You know, like in South Africa, we have great newspapers. We know exactly who's the crooked politician. We know everything. Doesn't help, but we still know, you know, who's stealing, you know. So that's what I'm hoping, that people will be more educated and aware faster. And, you know, the Reddit groups, the groups that are talking in the internet will wake all us up and say, people, really, education is not for the elite. Education is for the masses. And therefore that we will use social media to disclose when governments are corrupt or markets are being you know, manipulated. And that is what I'm counting on. I'm counting on education to wake us all up as to what's truly going on. Okay, well, and let's carry on educating.
Okay, hopefully,
okay.
But okay,
yeah,
thank you very much.
I still hope, you know, that this is the chance to create a better world. Okay, so guys, carry on educating yourself and educating everybody else. Don't be scared of crypto, but ask questions. Okay, and being 2101, I finished the class. Woo! You can all go. I see you next week, and I hope you do your homework, because DeFi is 10 times more complicated than this one. Okay, this DeFi is gonna blow you away. It's taking me hours to prepare that lecture. Okay.
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 Thank you,
Ciao,
Monica.
everybody.
We'll do our best. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you so much.
Bye, Monica. Thanks.
Bye,
Goodbye.
everybody. Bye.
Bye, prof.